municipal, whatever it would be. Special police, different options. All others are created by legislation. So the only true constitutionally created law officers, the ones that are ordained from the foundations of this country, are the elected officers, the sheriffs. And I just want to say this evening, we, ACE, invited 8, it expanded to 10. 10. We invited 10 sheriffs to be here. Now one at least, Marquette County, was not in town, and he wouldn't send his undersheriff, but these gentlemen, these sheriffs, were kind enough to respond and to come here, and I really appreciate that. There's nothing nicer than to be able to pick up the phone when you have a problem and contact your local law officer, the one that is constitutionally created, or walk into their office and they welcome you. So we really do appreciate it. And I think we're going to have a good time this evening. Again, I'm going to turn the program over to Diana Miller here, our president, and we will at some juncture, again, have an intermission. And again, there's an open bar. Just be careful because we've got a lot of heat here. There's lemonade, and there's coffee, and again we have different items that we are selling: T-shirts, license plates, whatever else it is. But feel free when we have intermission to take a break, and then we'll get back at it. Okay, thank you very much. Here's Diana.
It is so nice to see so many tonight. And I thank all of you for coming. Can you hear it? Can you hear it? Okay. It's just so nice to see such a good group here tonight. And I know some people said they came as far as Green Bay. Of course, we know Kim Simic and her. The people that knew her came from Eagle River area. And we have the sheriff from Vilas County, which of course they came to see, I'm sure. And it's really a wonderful night to see so many people. We are going to open right away with my niece Kim. Kim Harder-Webb is going to come up here and sing the national anthem to open our evening. And then we'll start the pledge of prayer.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streamed.
republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Pastor Valerio is going to come up and say a prayer.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, this evening we praise you and thank you for all the blessings and gifts which you have bestowed upon us who live in the United States of America, which we prize and cherish as the greatest country in the world. We especially praise and thank you for our divinely inspired Constitution, our Bill of Rights, and our rule of law. We ask that you open the hearts and the minds of all Americans so that they become aware, that they will understand that we are living today in perilous times when the forces of evil, even within our own government, are seeking to destroy what we have loved and cherished since the founding of our country. Father, we ask you to heal our land of racism and bigotry, of all divisions and violent crimes. Grant us the grace to respect human life, and especially the life of the unborn. Raise up government leaders for us who will not be self-serving, but who will be concerned primarily about formulating good policies for the American people, and leaders who will do the right things for the right reasons. Grant all of us the strength and courage we need to defend and protect our human rights and freedoms, no matter what the cost may be in the days ahead. We make our prayer this evening in the name of Jesus, who lived and died for the freedom of God's children and who bestowed upon us the gift of salvation in this world and the world to come. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, well, this night we're going to have Don Charlevoix come forward, and he's going to be our mediator tonight. Don Charlevoix, any of you from this area, of course, knows that he is a retired Dickinson County Sheriff. And actually, Don and I grew up together and went to school together, and so we've actually known each other for quite some time. But he was kind enough to come tonight, and he's going to be doing the asking of the questions. Please, during the time of the panel, if you have a question and you haven't written one down, just raise your hand, and there's a couple girls back here that have a little clipboard and some cards. You can write your question down. When you're done, raise your hand again. They'll take it from you, and they'll see to it gets up here. So instead of anybody trying to make noise or anything, we appreciate it if you just simply quietly raise your hand, and your questions will get asked. So, and Don will do that. And Don, I'll let you introduce the sheriffs. Thank you. And the
Thanks,
questions
Diana.
are all here that have been
Thank you. First off, I'd just like to thank Diana for inviting me to moderate this today. I'm very passionate about the office of sheriff. After spending 20 years there, and I know Sheriff Salello walked in when everybody was clapping. I don't know if that was timed or what. But anyway, like I said, it's a very passionate thing for me, and this constitutional stuff that we're embarking on with this country right now, and the way that the country is going, I think we need to all step forward and push back. I am going to introduce each sheriff here individually, and then first off, we're going to have from Vilas County, Sheriff Frank Tomlanovich. From Florence County, we have Sheriff Jeff Rickaby. From Menominee County, Sheriff Kenny Marks. From our own county here, Sheriff Scott Salello. And like Lee said, we're very happy that the sheriffs came and attended this function, and I'm astounded at the amount of people here compared to past meetings that I've attended, because you know things aren't right now in the country just by what you're seeing sitting out here. So we're going to get started right away, because I know the meeting has a certain time limit, and there's going to be a lot of questions, I believe, asked. So we're going to start with some of the questions that we have up here. And what we're going to do is, when we ask a question, they want each sheriff to have to answer, or answer to your best ability. What you think? Isn't that the ground rules, Diane? Or
Yes.
Diane? Okay. If President Obama takes away guns from honest citizens, how does he plan to get them from criminals? That was to the Vilas County Sheriff first. Vilas first.
All I can say to that is good luck, Mr. Obama.
No, okay. I'll pass this on when they answer the question. Diana, is everybody going to answer that same question?
I think that one, it says on the back who they wanted to ask.
Well, that was just the Vilas.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Don, you handle that as you see.
Okay.
As you would.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
This would be to Dickinson County Sheriff Scott Salell. Who has more power over gun law in this country, or in this county? You or the DNR warden? This primarily directed to gun confiscation.
It depends on who you ask. You ask the DNR, I'm sure they'll give you a different answer than what I will. There is controversy who is the chief law enforcement officer in the county. And I contend, as well as the Constitution, that the sheriff is the chief law enforcement officer in the county. Amen. Prosecuting attorney is the chief law enforcement official, but the sheriff is the chief law enforcement officer within their county.
Thanks, Sheriff. This one I'm going to ask for all four sheriffs to answer. If the federal government passes a law that would make it unlawful for a sheriff to not enforce a law, to confiscate the people's guns, what law would you uphold? The Constitution or the federal law? We'll start with Sheriff Rigby.
It's a very simple question for me to answer. I'm not here to enforce.
Put the mic on, yeah.
I'm not here to enforce federal law. Okay, I'm a constitutionally elected officer.
Bill.
Like Sheriff Rickaby, I don't take my directions from Washington, D.C. I work for the people of Vilas County. I will not take the firearms.
Sheriff Marks.
Well, I'm going to read something very short to you. This is what I released to my county media release several months ago. I think it lays that answer out very clearly. I am a constitutional sheriff. The people of Menominee County elected me to protect them, and I will not allow our citizens to be disarmed by the government. I am responsible for the safety of the people, and I will not bad bifocals here.
It's the age.
And I will not tolerate federal interference in matters of the state. My deputies and I will not allow the unconstitutional confiscation of guns from law-abiding citizens of Menominee County, nor will I allow federal or state officers to disarm law-abiding citizens in my jurisdiction. And that I end up with that, so help me God. I mean, I've taken an oath I've taken an oath as a retired military officer. I have throughout my whole career, I knew what that oath was, to uphold the Constitution. And as a police officer, as your sheriff in this area, I've taken an oath, just like all the other sheriffs have, to uphold the state and federal constitutions. And that includes the Second Amendment. So that's how strongly I feel about it. There are going to be challenges to our Constitution in the future, just like there have been in the past. But just because a law is passed by a legislative body does not mean it's a law that should be enforced.
I don't want to sound like a broken record, but if we didn't have the same thought pattern here, the four of us, you wouldn't see us here tonight. We feel very strongly about the oath that we take, and we also feel very strongly about the oath that we give to our deputies. One thing that I have started doing is, instead of the deputies that I swear in or that I want sworn in, instead of having them just going over to the clerk and have the clerk swear them in, I swear them in personally. Then they can go over to the clerk and get sworn in, more ceremonial, and sign the book. But I feel very strongly, as the other three gentlemen here feel strongly, and so do our deputies. What Sheriff Marks read, anybody that wants to see the full, the Michigan Sheriff's Association, I'm honored to sit on the board of directors for the Michigan Sheriff's Association. I represent the 15 sheriffs in the UP. And the board of directors worked very hard on putting out that statement that Sheriff Marks read a portion of. Anybody that's interested in seeing the full text, you can go on to the Michigan Sheriff's Association website, and it was very, not only well written, but it was well thought out, and we feel very strongly about the position that we put out. Thank you.
This is, again, to all, I think only one sheriff could answer this one, though. Can a Michigan resident of St. Joe County get training and qualify for a concealed carry license in another county, such as Iron, Dickinson, or Menominee? That would be for, that would be one of you two sheriffs from Michigan? Yeah.
The answer to that is any resident of the state of Michigan can go to another county and get their concealed carry requirements met, do the application, and fulfill the requirements to receive a concealed carry license. It is a concealed carry license for within the state of Michigan, so those rules apply to all counties.
Right. Actually, if I'm not mistaken, that's one of the more recent changes in the concealed weapons legislation.
Can Wisconsin answer that same question?
Wisconsin residents can obtain their training and get their license any place within the state of Wisconsin, as long as they meet the standards set forth by the Wisconsin Department of Justice. Your license is good to go. And I'm not sure if we have reciprocity with Michigan. I believe we do.
Yes, we do.
So a Michigan concealed carry permit is valid in our state, and ours is valid in Michigan.
Good deal.
Thank you. That was a good one. That was a very good question.
Hold on one second. Yeah, kiss that mic.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just not projecting.
Okay, everybody, you got to kiss the mic practically.
You get arrested for that. Just to touch on something that with the concealed license, To give you an idea, just in Dickinson County, in July of 2011, approximately a year and a half ago, Dickinson County had about 950 CCWs or CPLs. As of today, as of March 1st, we had 1,635. We had 66 issued in March and 66 issued today, which brings us to 1,767. So we've almost doubled in the last year and a half.
That's great news. And I can remember 6, 7, 8 years ago when we'd have these gun boards. And I would be sitting there with the prosecutor, and one of the things, of course, we always voted yes. And one of the first, it was the first county in the Upper Michigan, second county in the state of Michigan. And I can remember when we'd always vote yes. Of course, the state police had to have their standing orders, and they always voted no. But as a result of that, what happened was the shell issue law came into being. And now, of course, you can just see how easy it is for us. If you're not mentally incapacitated or something, we can get this carry issue. So that's, and it proves just what's happening in Dickinson County. So I got a good question here, and this would be to all the sheriffs. What power and authority does a sworn posse have, and who can deputize private citizens? I think maybe one sheriff from each state can answer that. If you want to expand upon it, you can. You're sitting too close.
What's the question?
Just kidding.
I can deputize, the sheriff can deputize the posse, and whoever we deputize will have the authority and the power to carry out whatever it is, whatever authority it is that the sheriff gives them.
This is a great question because it really is addressed from the state constitution down into state law. The power of the sheriff to deputize citizen, we could call them citizen soldiers, but I call it posse, reserve, etc. I have a large reserve unit broken up functionally in what they are trained to do. So they don't all do the same thing. One part of my unit is called a posse. Another part is a reserve property inspection unit, goes out and checks properties. One thing they all have in common, they're all volunteers and they're all deputized. And they're all specifically given powers that they can execute in assisting their county. And often I'm asked about this. I mean, how can you do this? Are they employees? The answer is yes, they are employees. When they're working on behalf of the county, even though they're in volunteer state, they are considered an employee. And it's all based on the fact that I have deputized them to assist our county and our sheriff's office. Thing is here is if we paid everybody to do everything that we have to accomplish in our counties, we would be broke. It's so important to be able to rely on your volunteers. And we've granted that power, and we execute that power to the best of our ability.
Sheriff Rigby.
One thing I want everybody to realize is even though we come from two separate states, there are two separate state laws to deal with. While that may seem obvious, there are some significant differences between Wisconsin law and Michigan law. Handguns, for example, and the use of handguns. And I'll get just are quite different from state to state. But on this subject, we are identical. The sheriff has the ability to call a posse. The sheriff can deputize anyone. And they carry the authority that the sheriff grants them. So the way I view it is the answers that they gave are the same answers that I would give as to who can deputize and call a posse. I don't know if Frank has anything to add to that.
In addition to that, under state statute in Wisconsin, the sheriff is the sole determiner of how many deputies there will be in the county. The county board holds the purse strings. They can determine how many paid staff you have. But if I want 200 deputies on the sheriff's office and the sheriff's department, that's what I'll have. And one question to you. Have you ever met a sheriff that doesn't love a microphone?
Never.
Thanks, Charles.
Or a retired sheriff.
Are you ever retired?
Well, I've been away from it for 4 or 5 years, you know, and to be honest with you, it's really nice to be in front of this group especially. You know, so thank you, and especially with these guys. Next question. I don't know who's going to answer this, because they can't answer this. You're the one that has to answer that one.
I can answer that at the end of the.
Okay. If any of the present additional gun laws are passed, will you enforce any of them in your county? I don't know particularly what they mean by this. If there's other gun laws, and we're going to pass on this one. Whoever wrote it, would you want to expand upon it a little bit? Or, okay.
I'm thinking especially what they're pending right now in Washington, the ones they're working right on now with the different varying bills that they have in here now. Okay. The ones they're working right on now.
Okay, so it's basically a question like the constitutional question: are they going to force?
Well, I'm talking about the assault weapon ban, the
Oh,
magazine
okay.
ban.
Well, I have them questions here. We'll get into that. But does anybody want to answer his question? If any of the present additional gun laws are passed that are before Congress right now, will you enforce any of them in your county?
My feeling on that particular question is it's the same question that was asked before. It's a federal law coming down to us. We're not here to enforce federal laws. I wouldn't personally cooperate with any enforcement of federal laws. In fact, resist the enforcement of federal laws within our county that violate the Constitution. So that's where I'm at, and I don't know if there's anybody else that has any comments on it.
Sure.
I agree with Sheriff Rickaby, but just because there is a certain law passed that deals with whether we're talking guns, whatever, doesn't necessarily mean that the passage of that law is in violation of the Second Amendment. So it's a very difficult question to answer without knowing exactly what the law is that's being considered. You know, there's some that are going to be passed that it's not going to be in violation of the Second Amendment. So it's a pretty broad question.
There's quite a list of items that were specified by President Obama in his list of laws and changes. For example, I would like to see some laws probably better passed at the state level to create more public mental health care. I think we could use. I'd be in support of that. The sheriff and I, we deal all of us, every day in our jails. Public mental health care, just services to be provided. I mean, we're lacking. Let's take a look at who is committing a lot of these considered heinous crimes all over the country. What is the background on each case? Dissect it, take a look at it. Many of you already have. There's something wrong across America. But banning magazines and banning assault rifles and banning guns is not going to be the answer to our challenges across America.
Between the 50 states and the federal government, we already have over 10,000 firearms laws on the books in this country.
That's all.
That's all. We don't need more laws. What we need is prosecutors that will charge these offenses when they're referred by law enforcement.
This question is to all the sheriffs. Many people are afraid to get a concealed carry permit because then our name is on a list. This list has been getting into the wrong hands in some areas. Can you speak on this fear?
I can tell you in regards to Menominee County, our county clerk takes that very seriously. Your name, your information regarding that you have a concealed carry permit is confidential, and it's kept that way. If an individual goes out in the community and tells others that they have a concealed carry license, that's the individual's right to do that. But in regards to the county clerk's office, the county sheriff's office, who has a concealed carry license is not public information, and that's how it's handled in our clerk's office.
Like I mentioned before, different states, different rules. In Wisconsin, the counties have nothing to do with issuing concealed carry permits. The permits are issued by the State Department of Justice. I have no idea who in our county has a concealed carry permit. None of our officers do unless they tell us. And the system is they apply through written application. They apply using a training certification certificate, which could be their military record. It could be a private training academy that they attended. That's all sent directly to the state of Wisconsin. The records are confidential at the state level. So we have no idea who's got concealed carry permits. For example, in my county, I don't know if anybody has one or if 500 people have them. I have no idea, nor do I really care. Okay, I really support concealed carry. Wisconsin, as you know, just recently passed that law. Bluntly, the Sheriff's Association does not support concealed carry as a group. Okay, I was one of 2 sheriffs to attend the signing of the bill. Okay, because I do support concealed carry and I do support the Castle Doctrine. And I just want to make that clear that Wisconsin is quite different than the state of Michigan when it comes to concealed carry permits and how they're gotten. I also want to comment on the other sheriff's mention of mental health. We as sheriffs see an average, this is nationwide, of 10 to 20% of our inmates in jail suffering from mental illness. There's a study done by the Pew Organization, which is a private think tank organization, and the amount of people incarcerated these days, held against their will, is the exact same as it was in 1956. You may find that hard to believe, but it's a fact. The difference is that there were people in mental health institutions in 1956. We all know what happened in Newberry. It's no different in Wisconsin. They closed the mental health institutions. They put these people out on the street on medication and expect them to take it, a lot of them, and they don't. And then we end up dealing with them. So on those 2 points, I really couldn't agree more. I think that we need prosecutors that will prosecute the existing laws. We don't need more laws. I believe that we need to make sure that mentally ill people are properly taken care of. And concealed carry, I support 110%.
If the United Nations orders worldwide gun control on small arms, are you going to stop the UN or be a part of the problem, or be part of the group that is going to try and stop the UN from taking the small arms from the American people? All of you.
I'm not even going to stand up because I don't think it's worth standing up for as far as the United Nations doing anything in our country, okay? As simple as that. I don't work for the United Nations like the rest of these gentlemen. We work for you. And we know what you want, and that's clear to us. We know what the Constitution says because the framers of the Constitution told us what they meant. We don't need the Supreme Court defining the Second Amendment.
Amen.
George Washington said, all free people should own guns. Thomas Jefferson said the beauty of the Second Amendment is the only time you'll need it is when they try to take it away.
That's right.
That says it all. We don't need to go to the rest.
Done. Why don't we take a little brief intermission now?
Okay, brief intermission, and then we'll come back in how long? 5 minutes? 10 minutes? 5 minutes. Okay, we would again appreciate you walking around, getting some materials, signing up for the videos. In another minute, we'll get started. Next question. Okay, we'll get started. This next question is to, I believe this is going to be to Sheriff Salello, because I know where he stands on this. I mean, but where he's at, where his position is on this. But being on the board of the Sheriff's Association, do you know how the majority of sheriffs in the Upper Peninsula stand on gun confiscation and concealed carry? What about northern Wisconsin? We'll start with Sheriff Salello.
I don't know of any other sheriff in the UP that has a different view than Sheriff Marks and myself. If they do, I don't know which one it is, but we're all pretty consistent with our view on that subject.
I was the secretary for the Badger State Sheriff's Association up until January of this year. 72 counties in Wisconsin, the support for concealed carry and the support for the Castle Doctrine is very poor. I'll tell you that right now. We are not like the Upper Peninsula sheriffs. We could not agree. In fact, at the December meeting, we had a lengthy discussion about it, and 8 sheriffs approved of concealed carry at that point out of 72. So that gives you an idea of where Wisconsin is at, and it's quite different than what you're experiencing here in the state of Michigan.
Okay, next question. If the sheriffs refuse to enforce the federal law, who will have the authority to override that? Get that? And that says to nobody. But who wants to answer it? Kenny?
I think the best answer to that is it's who has the authority. If you ask federal agencies and the ones that we deal with, they believe they have authority over pretty much everything. They can believe that, but the reality is they come into your county, and the constitutionally elected person in your county is your sheriff when it deals with law enforcement. And the bottom line is it'd be our job to stand up to that. again, out west, you see a lot of things in the past where federal agencies get involved. They come into particular areas, try to take over a incident, and in fact are stepping on the ground that the sheriff should be stepping on, dealing with issues that the sheriff should be stepping into and taking control of. Each sheriff has got a responsibility in his or her jurisdiction to do what they're constitutionally mandated to do. And sometimes that's standing up to federal agencies and saying, stop, let's talk about this. You are overstepping your authority in my jurisdiction. That's what we have to do. So the answer is depend on the situation, but in each situation, your sheriff has got to make a decision on what's right within their jurisdiction and is in compliance with laws and with the Constitution. And that has got to be done on a case-by-case basis.
Wisconsin and Michigan, what is preferred response of a CCW holder when stopped in a traffic situation to let the officer know you have a concealed weapon? We'll start with Wisconsin.
We do not have a written policy directing our officers to inquire whether somebody carries a concealed weapon or not. I think it's up to the individual concealed carry holder whether they want to tell us or not. Obviously, if you're a law-abiding citizen, you pose no threat to us carrying a firearm. So it doesn't bother me. I know that, and I'm not being current on Michigan law, but I know I've stopped a few Michigan concealed carry holders, and they identify themselves as concealed carry holders. Wisconsin doesn't require that. I don't know if Michigan does. As my personal preference is that I trust you until you prove me wrong. And that's where I'm at with it.
Michigan law specifies a concealed carry license holder is upon a traffic stop is to just notify the officer that I have a concealed carry permit, and I am carrying or I'm not carrying. It's as simple as that. The question is, are we going to know that anyway? And the answer is, once you have a concealed carry permit, license in the state of Michigan, that is entered onto your information on your driver's license. So that we will know that anyway. But typically what happens is we're not necessarily going to run the driver's license first upon stopping the car. So we're going to approach the car, somebody's going to let us know that, we'll go back, and if we have a reason to run the driver's license, we will see that there is a concealed carry permit. Otherwise, there isn't really much of a reason for it. Like the sheriff said, I could go either way myself. If we didn't even have that in the law, I think I'd be perfectly okay with that. It's not something I need to know, but that's how our law was written in Michigan.
I think with the question, Duke, was it the preferred response or?
Yeah, what is preferred response?
Personally, I would like to hear when you approach a vehicle and they notify you whether they're carrying, if they have a concealed license permit, because number one, I don't want to say it puts us lackadaisical, but at least it puts us at ease a little bit, because more than likely. Oh, okay. I thought you were making obscene gestures at me. I was going to ask you to stop that. We just feel more comfortable because we know that we're dealing with an individual that takes the law seriously, and the officers that I've talked to within our department like to hear when somebody tells them that they are a licensed carrier, whether they have the gun in possession or not. And again, that was discussed earlier before this started, and there was a question whether you have to if you're not carrying. And that's one thing that was brought to my attention, that the way the law reads is that if you are not carrying, you don't have to disclose. But again, it's going to be up for interpretation. So if doubt, let the officer know that you do have a license.
This is to Sheriff Salillo, Sheriff Tomlanovich. If you get grant money from the federal government, you have to go by their rules.
The only rules that we have to follow deal specifically with the grant. So it's purpose driven. If we get a federal grant for highway safety enforcement for arresting drunk drivers, they'll set a standard for a minimum number of contacts per shift or whatever. So we have to follow that. Beyond that, there are no rules or requirements or anything else, and if there was, we wouldn't get the grant.
Right. I mean, it applies the same for Michigan and Wisconsin. It's a federal grant, and if we don't want to, we know ahead of time what rules we have to follow and what requirements the grant sets out. And if we don't want to abide by that, or we don't agree with it, we just don't accept or apply for it.
Would you enforce a township ordinance that violates the Constitution? Dickinson.
Township ordinance, I don't care if it violates the Constitution or if it, a dog running at large. If it's a township ordinance, we will not enforce a township ordinance.
Don, can I follow up just on that? Is that just your policy, or is that basically Michigan policy?
No, I mean, there are certain ones that, there may be a county ordinance, and there's also a township ordinance or a city ordinance that applies to the same thing. And if there is I'll give you an example, whether a barking dog or an animal control issue. If there is a township ordinance or a city ordinance, not only don't we enforce, but we don't have the authority to enforce the city. And that's one thing that we've done, but we won't do it under a city ordinance or a township ordinance. If we have one that applies under county or state law, then we can.
Every state is a little different probably in this area, but Michigan, I like the way Michigan does it. I mean, if we're going to, even traffic law, if we're going to write on traffic law, we write on state statute. Counties are not permitted to come up with their own ordinances for traffic so they can get all the money, okay? Cities can, municipalities, but not counties. There's only so many things that in Michigan we can actually enforce with an ordinance. Otherwise, it's state law or it's nothing. And some of those things, there's some health and safety with like through the health department. We also have some animal control laws that we can enforce at the county level. Everything else is state. Our cities are a separate entity. They are a municipality, and they can't enforce their own ordinances. Our townships, what they have to do if they want to enforce township ordinances, they have to hire their own attorney, and they have to do it themselves. We cannot, by law, do it for them. in an instance of if a county takes over a city law enforcement function. Now, I recently did that with the city of Stevenson. They shut down their police department, and I took over by contract their law enforcement. In this case, some of their ordinances I can't enforce, but they still have to hire their own attorney, and I am considered the chief law enforcement officer now in their municipality. And by right of that, through state law, I can enforce certain things within the city. But it depends, and it's on a case-by-case basis.
This question, one of your sheriffs, I think, somebody up there on this side. Did the Iron County Sheriff give a reason for not showing up? I can probably answer it, but I'm going to let Sheriff Salillo if he wants to, or you want me to?
I don't know. Somebody asked me that during a break here, and as of Sunday, when I spoke with him, he planned on being here, and I believe he did commit to Diana. So the only thing I can tell you, and it was a voicemail from him, but I wasn't able to retrieve it. So knowing Sheriff Valesano, I've known the sheriff for a long time, and if he committed to be someplace and he didn't show up, I'd have to believe that there's a valid reason for him not being here.
I agree, the same. And I also know Sheriff Valesano very well, and I do know that he believes the same as these sheriffs up here. Please clarify assault rifles, semi-autos. What will background checks really do? We'll start on Vilas County.
What was the second part of that?
What will background checks really do?
Well, first of all, definition of assault rifle has been so twisted that nobody knows what an assault rifle really is anymore. An assault rifle is a selective fire weapon, capable of full automatic fire. So if your rifle that you have at home looks like the modern sporting rifle, as they're now calling them, and it doesn't go full auto, you don't have an assault rifle, period. As far as background checks are concerned, the background checks that we've been doing for years now are an effective means of keeping firearms out of the hands of certain people, to an extent. They do nothing to prevent straw purchases. So, really, what's the value of them? I don't know. I know there's a big push to require background checks for private sales, which I think is a crock. I mean, what we do with our guns is our business and nobody else's.
Amen.
Yeah, so we're clear, as far as background checks, we actually, as local law enforcement, don't have any authority in the background check process. That's an automated process in the state of Wisconsin. The dealer calls a hotline. That hotline has access to criminal records, and that's how background checks are conducted in Wisconsin. As far as an assault rifle and what defines that, I'll just describe a couple situations and you'll get the point. My wife last year got a bear permit in Wisconsin, which takes about 10 years. Okay, seriously, it does. It does. And she shot her bear with an AR-15 in .30 caliber AAC blackout. I reload. I use AR-15s for deer hunting, for bear hunting. Very effective weapons. They're hunting weapons to me. I use them all the time that way. And as far as what an assault rifle is, it doesn't have a solid meaning to me. They're tools just like anything else. Amen.
I would ask you as citizens to, when you're talking to other people, part of education. I mean, assault rifle, could we call it defensive rifle? I mean, what does this assault rifle terminology really mean? And we could get a carbine. We could have a carbine that's semi-automatic, can fire out quite a few rounds with a long magazine on it. Could be in .22 caliber. May not look as scary as what they're showing on TV that they say is an assault rifle, but it still is semi-automatic. I think we have to educate the public that assault means we're going to use it offensively, we're going to attack somebody. I mean, a right to bear arms is the right to bear arms to protect ourselves, defensive purposes as well. This term is being misused for a reason, politically, to gain an advantage. And so the term assault rifle is all encompassing. And I have a real problem with that. And I think we need to educate people that don't know the difference, that it isn't a scary thing, an assault rifle. We need to name it for what it is and counter it as best as we can.
I don't have anything to add. As far as the other three sheriffs are right on. I mean, the definition of an assault rifle is so across the board. I mean, so broad. You know. But as far as the capabilities of the gun, I'm not qualified to answer that, to be honest with you.
This next question it pertains to all the sheriffs, but I think we have other questions to go here. We'll ask from each state the same question. And if for some reason the counterpart has more to add, by all means. But this here particular question, what could you do against Homeland Security forces? What about the government buying up huge amounts of ammunition? Which one on the left? Sure.
Again, broad question. Homeland Security. Are we talking TSA? Are we, you look at the umbrella is the Homeland Security, and there are so many different agencies that fall under Homeland Security. So I'm not trying to sidestep the question. It's just that there's so many different ways of answering it, and what department are you talking about? As far as buying up the ammunition, it's funny because I was listening to a radio show out of Iron County today. I'm always looking for good deals, so I listen to that Talk Time. So, and the discussion was on there today. One guy called and was complaining about these individuals that will go to a store when a shipment comes in and buy large amounts of the ammo that the store is just getting in, and then turn around and advertise to sell it for 2-3 times of what they bought it for. So we don't have to just look at the federal government doing it. We have to look at those around us doing it. And maybe we need to get the message out to our friends and neighbors that are buying up large amounts of ammo to profit from it. It's not just the federal government that's trying to take the ammo off the street. It's also your friends and neighbors that are trying to earn a quick buck by buying it and reselling it.
When you talk Homeland Security, too, you're talking a very large sphere of control, different agencies controlling different parts of Homeland Security. The National Guard in Michigan falls under the authority of the governor, yet they're also included in that equation of national Homeland Security. Again, they do not answer specifically to the feds, but I think in part there is some authority that spills over from the federal government. There's been a lot of changes since 9/11 in terms of how all the agencies interact from the federal level down to the state, and it makes it a lot more complicated. As far as the ammo question, I know we have our challenges getting our ammo for our deputies to qualify with. Right now, ammo is definitely at a premium. It's being bought up by a lot of different agencies and by the public. There's a lot of fear out there right now. That's why many of you are here right now talking with us. A lot of concerns. My understanding is the ammo companies are cranking out ammo as fast as they're capable of doing it right now, and it's being bought off the shelves as fast as it hits the shelves. So it's very, very difficult situation right now. But I think as time goes on, we're going to see this shake out, I hope. I hope that there isn't as much support on the assault rifle ban and magazine ban is what some say there is. I mean, I'm very optimistic that when it gets to the Senate, it's going to be struck down and it's going to be stopped.
This is the Sheriff Rigby. What are the positions of the sheriffs in Wisconsin who do not approve CCWs for their citizens? Why are they against it?
I don't think that I can speak for individual sheriffs, but what I will tell you from listening to the conversations that we had over the topic is, unlike Michigan, concealed carry is new in Wisconsin. Like anything new, people are fearful of changes. And I believe that sheriffs in Wisconsin are no different than the average person when it comes to being fearful of all of a sudden being flooded with what they would think is flooded with concealed carry permits. Wisconsin did. I guess I didn't check before I came here today. It's possible for me to find out statewide how many permits have been issued, but I don't know individual counties. I don't know individual people, as I mentioned before. So the reaction that I get from other sheriffs is more of fear of armed citizens, which is unfortunate, than it is of anything else. That's what I see. I don't know if Frank has any comments on that or not.
The most recent number I've heard for Wisconsin is the Department of Justice has issued 175,000 concealed carry permits, and our Attorney General J.B. Van Hollen has permit number 1.
Do you think what happened in Australia 12 years ago could happen here? Starting.
It said anybody.
What specifically are they?
Well, the question was, do you think they took the guns away from people in Australia 12 years ago? Do you think the same thing could happen here?
You know, one of the reasons I'm so passionate on this issue is my travels around the world in the military, especially in third world countries, studying history prior to World War II. I mean, when you have gun control, you take the guns out of the hands of the people. That's the first step of a lot of other bad things happening. And historically, you can go back a long time in the history of the world, and you can see that those who can control the guns in the government can put their will upon the people. And so I'm passionate. I don't want to see that happen here in America, because that's not what America stands for. We stand for freedom and liberty. Countries that have dictators typically have gun control. Those who have guns are the ones that are supporting those in power. Those who do not have guns are obviously, they don't have them for a reason. I don't want to see that happen here in America, and the fact that you're all here tonight, and there are people all over the country getting together in different organizations and speaking on this issue and asking questions, the debate, the passion is going to make sure it doesn't happen here in America. But, apathy will not get us anywhere. And typically, when it comes to gun control, the people have their say. And we had our say back when there was the Brady Bill. I remember that very clearly. And that went to the federal Supreme Court for a decision on that. People have to stand up for what they believe in, and that's why we're here tonight.
On a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being low and 5 being high, how important do you think legally armed citizens are to reducing crime rates overall?
Hopefully I get the 1 and the 5 straight. I'll just answer it this way. I really believe, and I truly believe, that armed citizens are the best defense. It's clear, no matter what you look at, that law enforcement bluntly cannot protect you. Okay? Our average response time, for example, in our county is 14 minutes. So what can happen in 14 minutes? The average police shooting lasts seconds, not minutes. So we are going to be no immediate help to you. And I'm not beating around the bush on this subject, as you can tell. You need to defend yourselves, and you need to have the ability to defend yourselves. And that's what I think about concealed carry. That's what I think about firearm ownership. And that's why you should own guns. And it does have an impact on crime, because it makes it a lot harder for somebody to make a decision on who they're going to attack if they're not sure if they're going to meet a lot of resistance. Okay? And I really support that idea. And that our founding fathers also spoke on as well. John Adams had a very good statement. I wish I could quote it right now. It's actually really long. It's like a whole paragraph long. But basically what he says is that firearms deter crime. Okay? And I agree. Firearms do deter crime. We've got a couple books out there, I think one written by Lott, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while since I looked at it, that really look at the subject of firearms and their effect on crime. And John Lott. Okay. So I think there's a lot of data out there that really does support firearm ownership and the ability of people to be able to protect themselves. So.
Well, I'm looking at the time, and I have a few more questions here, so I'm going to limit it to one response just for the remainder. But here's one that Sheriff Solello. Do you support arming teachers and or school administrators who volunteer to carry at their school?
Well, you wouldn't believe how many times I've been asked it since the Connecticut, especially the Connecticut shooting. And I don't have a good answer. I would support a measure like that if, and again, how well are they going to be trained? How often are they going to be? How often are they going to train? I mean, we have police officers that train 4 or 5 times a year, and that's that's a lot. Just because of not only budgets and everything else, but it's the time restraints and the teachers. I mean, you take police officers that are well trained, and you put them in a stressful situation, and not always good things happen. You go back to your training. Now you take a teacher who is not used to something like that, and I've heard the argument that, well, it would be limited to a teacher that has military background. Well, maybe you've been out of the service for 20, 25 years. That still qualifies. And again, that's a difficult question. I can see benefit in having armed teachers, and I can see drawbacks. And again, I'm not trying to be wishy-washy, but you have to look at both sides of it.
Diana, how long do we go?
Are this the end of the questions you have there? I don't think there's any.
Well, I
You
have a
can go
few.
forever.
Pardon me?
You have enough questions for 2 days.
Yeah. Why don't we ask maybe one or two more questions here? And this is a good question here, and then I'll wrap my part up, and then Lee and Diana can come up and close it out for us.
Yeah, I'll get copied next month.
What effect do you think a federal ban on manufacture and sale of some semi-automatic firearms, termed by some as assault weapons, would have on reducing violent crime?
None whatsoever. And again, that term assault weapon pops up. Just a historical footnote. How many of you know where the term assault weapon or assault rifle originated?
Germany.
1944, Adolf Hitler. The STG-44. So they're comparing us to Nazi troops.
Yep, that's what they're doing.
Last question, and I may add, I've got other questions here, and they're excellent, excellent questions, all of them, but our time allotted is here. Do you support the concept of a national database tracking all legal gun sales? That would be to Menominee County.
Excellent question. I separate federal, state rights. I think the federal government is way too involved in the state's business. I think there's ways of enforcing the laws we already have on the books, and I think the sheriffs have said that already, to keep weapons out of the hands of very dangerous people that are causing many of the massacres that we're seeing around the country. I don't think we need this massive state or federal database in order to manage this issue. Each state is responsible for their security. I'm responsible for the security of Menominee County, and let me do the job to the best of my ability. Let the state of Michigan assist us in doing what we have to do here in Michigan and in any other state. But the federal government having to step in and say, hey, we're coming to save you. I mean, I think the federal government right now has their hands full with the budget and with national security. There's a lot of outside threats that they need to concentrate on. Let the states take care of their own business.
I'd like to close my part here, and again, thank you very much for inviting me to be a part of this. Get together tonight with these sheriffs. I'd like to close with two things that I've known in my past years. Recently, my wife and I just went to Israel, and I'll tell you, I have never felt so safe. As safe as I feel here or in Green Bay. I was in Green Bay. Wherever I went, there wasn't a problem. I mean, you read that in the media all the time. They have clashes, sure they do. But I'll tell you what, out in the countryside, we're on a bus, and here's a little gal sitting out there with a gun slung over her shoulder. And I said, oh man, I looked at her and I couldn't believe it. And she was just, the bus driver said, she's as safe as anywhere. So they're doing the right thing over there. And last thing I'd like to say is these sheriffs up here are the last bastion for free society for people to vote on their law enforcement. They're the last people, based on the Constitution, that are enforcing our laws. And that's why the ordinary person out there likes the office of sheriff, because they listen to the people, and you have a say who's going to be your law enforcement, but they are the last. So whenever they come up with, and they're always trying to erode the office of sheriff, and if that ever comes up, spread the word. You got to support these sheriffs, because I'll tell you what, they're going to be your last hope between a free society and anarchy. They're the last ones. So thank you on my behalf. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Don, for stepping in and emceeing this program. And we're going to wrap this up pretty soon, but Diana, our president, is going to close shortly, and she has some special entertainment. But let me just say this. Remember, ACE is the Americans for Constitutional Enforcement. We are the only nation in the history of the world that we know where you people are citizens. Every other nation, you are subjects. That's the way our Constitution was drafted. We have the best document that stands between us and tyranny if we retain it. That's up to us. That's your responsibility. I tell our group here many times over the years, if we are not vigilant in keeping our politicians' feet to the fire, that Constitution of ours becomes nothing more than a historic document under glass. And there are people that want to put it under glass and keep it there. And they will impose their will on the rest of us. I thank God for these men here tonight and their stand. And when Ace brought them here, we take no stand on the issue. You can probably tell where we stand. But we don't take a position. They were invited here to give their response so that you know. I'm so thankful that I heard the responses that I heard this evening. I appreciate that. Let me close by saying, 1776, when the colonies decided they had enough of government, federal type government, pressure from above down. Remember, the British people are still subjects of the crown. They're still subjects, and they don't have the right of coercion or force or arms. The shots heard round the world. Remember, 1th by land, 2th by sea? Lexington and Concord? Do you know what was happening there? Let's see how many of you history buffs remember. What was going on at Lexington and Concord? One person in the back, a couple people know. The government sent the Redcoats, their troops, to take away the guns of the colonists. That was their mission.
How'd that work out for him?
It worked out just great. Because you know what? The colonists had the same weapon that the British did. The same one. The same musket. The same force. It wasn't pea shooter against the musket. Don't be fooled when you hear statements, no one needs an assault rifle to kill a deer. We need common sense gun laws. How do you argue with that? Cop killer bullets. Is there certain ones that just kill cops? Gun violence. We're against gun violence. Are guns violent? High capacity magazines. What does that mean? What does that mean? What does that have to do with anything? Do you know what all of those issues have in common? None of them are in the Constitution. The liberals are defining the agenda, and we've got to quit using that terminology. Bring it back to where it belongs. It's your constitutional right. The Founding Fathers knew what that meant. It had nothing to do with Bambi or capacity magazines. That is smoke and mirrors, and I get so tired of hearing conservative news commentators try to argue those points. That has nothing to do with it. And when we get caught up with that, we ended up putting that Constitution under that glass. So let's not do that. And I'm going to leave you tonight, my part. I always charge my audience not to leave here and think about it and feel good about the answers. Because the politicians are still there trying to do what they believe they want to do in control. It's not about guns, it's all about control. We have one congressman, and I thank God that one we have currently is pro-Second Amendment. And there's a group that wants to get rid of him real bad. We have 2 U.S. senators who are very unconstitutional and have opposed the Second Amendment almost every time the vote comes up. I wrote to Senator Levin one time, I was sharing with one of the group here, telling him specifically to oppose a certain bill. 60 days later, I got a response. Dear Mr. Gazzetti, thank you for supporting me in my efforts to eliminate these guns. You know how frustrating that is. Now, I will just say this. It's published in the press, the numbers, it's in the phone book. Call your senators. We know where they stand. Call Congressman Benishek, because when they take their polls, if you don't call and say, do not vote for this, or please support that, they mark that down. They'll say, well, you know what? My constituents in Michigan are 87% opposed to these assault rifles. You know why it was 87%? Because we didn't call. So it'll be 87% because their people call. When we start to call, it's going to come down. Well, maybe it's 49% favor that legislation. And maybe 51% oppose it. Because liars figure and figures lie. And politicians know what to do. And these folks are not in our corner. Thank God for these folks. They're in our corner. And Diane, why don't you come on up now and close the group. Remember, 3rd Tuesday of the month. Keep the Constitution alive. My license plate, which we're selling back there. God and Constitution, neither are dead unless we kill them. It's our choice. Diana?
We do have something special for the very closing of the night, but before we get into that, there was a couple people going around selling 50-50 tickets. If anybody didn't get a chance to get them, please raise your hand, and Frank and Cheryl come around. I just wanted to mention too, somebody had asked about a copy of the Constitution. They said, do you know where we could get one? We have these here. You're going to help me hold that up? Sure. These normally sell for like $10, and Ace sells them for $3. And we give them free to all the schools, and even the people that homeschool. If you turn it around, it's the Constitution at a glance. We intend to put one at the doorway. We get somebody to frame it on some plexiglass for us so you can see both sides. But we have those, and they sell for $10, and they're for $3 back here. It's a nice thing to take. If you've got kids, grandkids, let them see the Constitution. Let them get familiar. And one thing, we have a lady here tonight, I think she's still here, Jane, who has a bookstore in town, Greenway Bookstore. And just this last Sunday, Ed McBroom, I met with them there as he presented her with a flag that had flown off over the state capitol. And Ace provided the Constitution to go along with it. She has a little area in her bookstore with the table and chairs, 3 books for the kids every time they come in. And then when she has book exchange days, I believe it is, that they can come certain days of the week and trade their books in for a new one. And she has all kinds of things. People come in and they donate books. She sells a lot of used books. They maybe give her $50 worth of books and they say, I don't want anything for it. She puts that credit so that the people that are school teachers, especially these young teachers, who don't have the money to stock their shelves, they come in every month, they get free books. And they go in, she has store credit. It's awesome. She keeps this right out for the kids with her flag for the kids so they get familiar. It was a good idea, I thought, to have it all there. But I was talking with Don Charlevoix, and I was wondering, did you want a chance, Don, to give your statement of how you would have answered the question that we put before the sheriffs tonight? If you were asked to confiscate arms when you were sheriff, how would you have responded?
Get comfortable.
I took an oath of office, as these guys did. Hold the Constitution of the United States. Need I say any more? No.
Thank you very much. If you would just stay with me and see for one moment, we have something special. Before you leave, I would like, if you stay quiet in your seats, Kim Simic is going to come up and close with a song tonight. And Kim does have her books for sale on the back table tonight too. And she was the one that suggested calling the sheriff from Vilas County. And I'm very happy to have had him here.
Thank you. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountains, majesties above the fruited plains. America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea.
We do have a 50-50 drawing. Frank, you have that? You have someone who wants to ask? Is there 50-50 ready there, Frank? Yeah. He's coming, it'll just be a second. While I'm waiting for Frank to come up, on Saturday, the 20th, Felch Township, we had a speaker here recently, Bob Archiquette, and he is a pastor, but he has read the Obamacare bill front to back a couple times, and he's going to teach on the Affordable Health Care Act, what you need to know. Join them in Felch, and that's 2 o'clock this Saturday. So I have this one poster here. They have some others available if you're interested. You want to just have the sheriff there on the end, Brett?
Don Charlevoix. Just kidding, he's too cheap.
Look at him.
765-853. The last three, 853.
853, anybody have that number on their ticket? Someone over there? Okay. Okay, I'd like to thank everybody. Remember, we meet the third Tuesday of every month here, except December.
Thank you for inviting me.
Have a great evening.
Yeah, great meeting you. It's a pleasure. Take care, be safe.